Yeah, between two burns. Between two burns, yeah, between two burns. Come and join the convo. Jason and Ethan here to talk, yo. Chillin' while we filling up the room with cigar smoke. Hey, between two burns. Between two burns, yeah, between two burns. This be the show that you like. We always keeping it hype. We got cigars and a mic, talking the pipe and the pint. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. After
I've missed you so much.
what feels like a long hiatus. We have been so busy.
Before the Super Bowl, right?
We did the Super Bowl preview pod was the last one, so that was the beginning of February.
A little over a month then, yeah.
Yeah, too long. But we've been building the space out. So
I was about to say, we have a good reason.
yeah, we're in another new space if you're watching the podcast. We're still in the new shop. We've moved to the bar, so you can see the new bar done. We got the backdrop of the humidor behind us. Not going to be our permanent location, but we did say that this is a pretty cool spot to record some stuff in going forward.
It's good, the ambiance.
Cool ambiance. Yeah. We got our lights above us. We got the cool backdrop of the humidor right there. But it's been far, far too long. But like you said, we've got a good excuse. We've been working hard on this new space. All of our customers or our listeners, we are getting there. Our last hurdles we are clearing now. It's taken longer than I had hoped. I think, we've kind of told some people why, but we got some bad information and some bad direction early on from some people that we thought was going to be the right way to go. Turns out it wasn't. Is what it is. Had to pivot, but thankfully we've got a friend now in the government.
It's good to
in
know
the
people.
local government. We've got a friend.
People.
We got a friend of the leaf, as they say.
That's exactly
a
right.
brother of the leaf who is helping us get through it. So if he's listening, he knows who he is, and we appreciate it. But it's good to be back talking cigars, man. Like it has been way too long, and really the last pod we didn't talk cigars that much because we were talking football. I mean, we literally talked football. Now we're in March Madness.
Yeah,
we were recording this on Thursday.
The games start back today, right?
Yeah, Sweet 16 starts today. So there's 4 games today and 4 games tomorrow, right? That's 8 and 8. Yeah.
Yeah, it checks out.
So,
you got a
truck
delivery
going by.
coming?
No, I thought somebody was popping in the door, so we'll have to wait and see. Who's your pick to win the national championship? You know mine, but
man, I don't know at this point. Arizona looks good, but they always choke. I have no idea. As long as Duke doesn't win, I don't care.
Obviously, I think it's Michigan. I'm a Michigan fan. I do think Michigan is the best team. I think they're better than Arizona.
Yeah, I agree
They
with
really
you.
don't have any common opponents, I don't think. And
y'all's biggest problem is my our former point guard.
Is your former point guard.
Yeah, he's terrible.
Yeah, Cadeau's been up and down.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, as long as Duke doesn't win, I don't care.
I don't think Duke's going to win.
I don't know.
I don't think actually. Is that game is tomorrow night as well?
It's tomorrow.
Right? Yeah. So I actually don't even know who the games are today as far as the big games. I got to assume at least one of the 1 seeds plays today. Arizona might play tonight against Arkansas or whatever it is. But neither here nor there. So you and I, we're back with the newest episode, but you and I have talked about over the last, since we started doing the podcast, and we're popping some ideas, talking less about, hey, what's new in the shop, what's specific, and doing some deep dives educational wise in cigars. We talked about, kind of seed to ash kind of stuff and everything like that, which we have that podcast coming down the road, but
we still need a model, by the way.
Yeah, we're looking
wants to be on the podcast as a model.
Who wants to be a leaf? Let us know. We got some ideas. We can convince one of these two.
I have to be cool with wearing a bodysuit.
Yeah, bodysuit man. So we wanted to do the seed to ash kind of thing and talk about it in a way that helps our customers kind of maybe better understand what they're smoking and what they might be into. So we started to knock around some ideas, and we're like, well, let's do, or at least start with, maybe one of the main, if not the main component, which is the wrapper leaf. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a 3-part series on we'll call it the 3 primary wrapper categories, right? Connecticut, Habano, Maduro. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. So there's obviously offshoots and branches and that kind of thing that we'll delve into in each one of those, including today with the one we're doing now. But I think it can help. It helps me I know it sounds weird considering, we're around it so much. It helps me either as a refresher or things I really, genuinely didn't know about, certain wrappers, where it's coming from, why it's coming from, where. So we thought no better place to start than I think we're going to kind of go what a person would think traditionally mild to full.
Yeah.
If we do it like that. So first thing we're doing is the Connecticut wrapped cigar. Now, we are going to get into all things Connecticut and how it's done, how long it's been around, what, why it is and what it is. But there is the offshoots within Connecticut as well, because I think most people, rightfully so, think of Connecticut's as that light, pale shaded wrapper, delicate and super mild, but there's nuances to it depending on where it's coming from. So I think it's a fun way for us to kind of get into the educational piece and talk to, our customer base and new customers about what these different things are. What's your relationship with Connecticut cigars?
I love them in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We were talking with
that's
Cole.
A popular opinion.
Yeah,
too.
we were talking with Cole about what our favorite Connecticut cigars were, and I think all three of us pretty much have the same top three.
Mm-hmm.
I go through spells though. I'm a seasonal cigar smoker, if that makes sense. So during the winter, I like darker, more full-bodied cigars, and during the summer, I actually like the Connecticut lighter cigars. I don't know why. It's kind of like beer drinking though. I like darker beer during the winter and lighter beer during the summer. I don't want something real heavy during the summertime. A lot of times, like smoking a Tabernacle when it's 90 degrees outside and I'm outside is not fun. I'd rather smoke a Zeno Nicaragua or Perdomo Legacy Connecticut or Hoya, something like that. But I like Connecticut when it's a good Connecticut. And what I mean by that is I like Connecticut's that have a lot of flavor to them, but that are still mild, because the really good Connecticut's, in my opinion, are the closest thing a lot of times that you can get to old school Cuban cigars and what Cuban cigars used to be like, and some still are today. That or Corojo, which we're not going to talk about that today, but the Hoya Antonio Connecticut, I remember the first time I smoked it, it had that real citrusy, like orange peel creaminess to it that I love. But it was very Cuban reminiscent. And I will say some of my favorite cigars of all time have a Connecticut wrapper on them, like the La Polina Goldie, La Guido Especial back from 2012, the Opus 20th. Just great cigar. The Peace Unique is another great one.
Great cigar.
So, I really appreciate Connecticut wrappers. And then if you ask me what my favorite wrapper is, it really oscillates between Corojo and Connecticut Broadleaf, which we're also going to talk about that today. And it gets a little confusing. That's the thing about Connecticut's is Connecticut, I think, may be the most misunderstood type of wrapper leaf, because Connecticut Shade doesn't necessarily come from Connecticut. There's Connecticut Broadleaf and Connecticut Shade, but they're two different kinds of tobacco, two different things. So that's kind of what we're going to get into today. But like I said, when Connecticut Broadleaf is done well, it's probably my favorite type of wrapper leaf. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I personally smoke a lot of Connecticut's.
Mm-hmm.
I gravitate more towards mild medium. I really enjoy the Nicaraguan Connecticut, blends. They, I think, have a tendency to reach more and closer into the medium range than I think Dominicans or Hondurans, for that matter, do. And there's obviously big differences in flavor profiles for each one of those. I love the Hoya Connecticut. It's one of, if not my favorite Connecticut. I'm smoking Charter Oak Connecticut, the Shade Connecticut, which I think may be the best value Connecticut that we sell.
I think it's either that or the Zeno. Yeah.
What was that?
It's either that or the Zeno.
Oh yeah,
sure.
One of the two. Yeah, one of the two for sure. And the Zeno, it says Nicaragua is a Nicaraguan. I cannot remember. I know it's a weird anomaly.
This is
right?
my favorite weird cigar fact when it comes to like brands we carry. Zeno Nicaragua, made in Honduras, has a Connecticut wrapper, and then Dominican, Honduran, and Nicaraguan binders and fillers.
Yeah.
So why it's called Nicaragua outside of having like a leaf of Nicaraguan tobacco in it, beyond me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I didn't want to make it sound weird, like it because it says Zeno Nicaragua right.
I think
on the
last
band.
year in Cigar Snob or 2 years ago, one of the bigger magazines, it won Honduran Cigar of the Year.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal. Zeno Nicaragua winning Honduran Cigar of the Year. But yeah, great value. Like you said, we're going to get into talking Connecticut Broadleaf. The Connecticut that I said Hoy is my favorite. I do believe that to be true. The Perdomo Legacy Connecticut has broached into that conversation with me just because it's so unique in the way it's done, and that it has this kind of new age. I think there's been, I guess, we'll compare it to maybe like craft beer a little bit. There was a clear kind of line in time where people before that, we'll call it BCAD type of thing, they like the prior generation of Connecticut's were very traditional and mild.
Yeah, it's the resurgence of Connecticut's has been great because the old Connecticut's tasted like smoking air.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds stupid, but they were so mild
that was always,
for the sake
that was
of
always
being
the
mild.
knock on them from the more in-depth cigar smoker.
Yeah.
But it's also probably what made them the most appealing to new cigar smokers. Because I don't have the facts to back this up on me, but I got to assume that Connecticut Shade wrapper cigars are still the top selling wrappered cigar.
Gotta be.
Yeah,
They gotta
undoubtedly.
be.
Yeah, I don't think that's going way out on a limb because of the appeal
If
to newbies.
if you look at the two largest cigar companies in the world, which are Altadis and General, I'm again don't have the facts, but I'm 99% sure Macanudo Cafe, which is a Connecticut wrapper, is General's #1 selling cigar. And then I have to imagine that either Romeo Reserva Real or Monte Cristo White are Altadis's
is Altadis, yeah.
#1, and both of those are Connecticut's.
Yep.
Arturo Fuente, they have the Cameroon thing on lock, but they do a lot of Connecticut with Chateau, Double Chateau, the Dior Selection Privada. Everybody's got one, and you have to have one, right? But like you were saying, the thing back in the day is so many of them, especially the ones that had Dominican binders and fillers, were just mild for the sake of being mild, and it felt like they were sacrificing flavor for strength, and that's just not the case anymore.
No.
And a little bit of a sidebar, you were talking about how you smoke so many Connecticut's. My favorite fun fact about you, as I remember you as a customer, is it used to not be that way.
No, it did. Well, it really wasn't.
And I think that's a testament to two things. One, how people's palates change over time, but two, also how good Connecticut's have gotten. Because if I'd have recommended you a Connecticut cigar back in the day when I just knew you as a customer, you'd have laughed at me.
Yeah, probably.
Because you just smoked more full-bodied, DPG Blue.
Yep.
that
Yeah,
kind of
DPG
thing.
Blue was my go-to.
Yeah.
Go-to. And still love that cigar.
Yeah.
I haven't smoked that cigar in quite a long while. But that's going to get us off on a tangent. But yeah, I mean, there was some... And it's probably forgotten a little bit because manufacturers have a tendency to blend a little bit on trend.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable. Like, that's not a knock. Like, you should do that. You should be blending to what customers are buying. Otherwise, you're not selling cigars. It's the reason we see this advent of big ring gauge cigars, right? If customers are demanding big ring gauge stuff.
It's like the Lancero boom of the mid-2010s.
Yeah.
Right? But it's trendy. So, like, Lanceros, there's just, companies still make them, obviously, but they're not as prevalent as they were back in the day. I remember 2014, 15-ish, everybody was coming out with a Lancero.
And everybody wanted a Lancero.
Yep. And now it's like you said, big ring gauge.
They're hard to give away.
Yep.
Even though it's not true, there's just this perceived, I think, customer value proposition to the bigger ring gauge stuff that if I'm going to pay, let's $15 for an example, and I'm getting this 660, 770, and bigger, that there's this how much more I get to smoke for what I paid for it, almost a miles per puff kind of thing. Comparatively, and I think I think a consumer sees it that way. Like I'm just getting more for my money, which it's not it's not unreasonable to think like that. I guess I don't know that you're getting. Well, in my opinion, you're not getting a more enjoyable product in the end. I don't think you're getting the best representation of that cigar. I think you could get so much nuance between sizes, but that may be a whole nother podcast that we talk about is relationship of tobacco to the size of it. My favorite size, really, if I could smoke it all the time and was available and everything, is I like a slightly larger Corona. That's kind of like where I really enjoy time to flavor profile. Now, I like some more unique shapes. Like I thought the 109 and the Supreme Leaf was a great size and shape. I really like that. There's certain kind of Salamone types that I really enjoy. I wouldn't have those probably every single time. So, but if I was, I don't know what the Corona size I would think that would be it, but it's in that general neighborhood.
I will say this, tying this back to the Connecticut thing, and just sitting here thinking about it, there are not any that I can think of above 60 ring gauge Connecticut wrapped cigars on the market. And I think I know why. But
I think we can actually kind of segue into that portion of it and what it is. I think that probably has to do with the delicacy of the wrapper.
No, that's what I was going to say too.
Right.
That, and you're using so much binder and filler tobacco that my guess is you wouldn't taste it like the wrapper leaf at all. My guess is it would get overwhelmed by the binders and fillers too. But
yeah, I think leaf size of that size and how delicate shade wrapper is. So let's get into that a little bit. So I've taken some notes and we'll do a little bit of a history lesson to start out with. But right from the name of it, Connecticut cigars are because, at least in the beginning, the tobacco was actually grown in the state of Connecticut. Okay, so Europeans come to the United States growing tobacco. In other words, tobacco being grown in the United States, including this region of what's now the United States.
Yeah.
Before they got here, but the actual farming, and we'll call it industrialization or popularization of it, happened when Europeans are coming over and then planting tobaccos in that. It's the Connecticut River Valley, I guess you call it. The town that they always kind of look back at as the place, the epicenter is Windsor, Connecticut, I think is what the name of it is. And that's in that river valley. And that's probably as early as like the 1600s you're talking about, early settlements of people.
Long
because
time,
humans' relationship with tobacco goes back
thousands of years.
You can go, but I mean, again, I'm not nobody's going to confuse me for a historian. I'm more of a space guy, but
that's another podcast.
That's a whole other podcast. Got to be drunk for that.
It's going to be an after hours podcast.
After between two burns, after dark, outside looking at the sky. You can go back through history, like historical documents and papers, and you will find references. And the person that I think a lot of people, I'll say me, that I think is kind of, we'll call him the king of Connecticut, right? A guy who's from Connecticut. Nick Malia owns Foundation Cigar Company. He uses that history in a lot of his cigars, like whether it's naming it, he has a tendency to kind of put that history out there for you to see as a background in the cigar. So you can go back and find historical references to humans using tobacco, like you said, thousands of years, ceremoniously, traditionally, medicine,
all of it.
Yep. So, you go back and it's brought into Connecticut, and the literal, when we talk about Connecticut Shade, and that's when you're talking about the big ring gauge, because there's some Connecticut Broadleaf, I think, that's in above the 60s.
Yeah.
And we'll get to Broadleaf in a little bit here. But when you say Connecticut Shade and we talk about how delicate that wrapper is, when you see a Connecticut Shade as the name of something, you can take it quite literally, because it is literally grown in the shade.
Yep.
And that's what, that lack of sunlight, that filtered sunlight, is what keeps the nicotine content down, the strength down, but gives it that color. That's, we can get into this on a podcast when we're talking about the whole plant, but the farther you go up the plant, when the plant is just out under normal conditions and not shade, the higher priming stuff is the strongest stuff.
Yep.
The stuff that gets the most sunlight, that reaction between the two things is what gives that concentration, is what gives it its strength. So we're talking literal, and I'm sure it's evolved over the years, but I don't think it's a super, I don't want to say complicated, but technical process. We're talking about when Robbie and I were in Nicaragua, you could see it. It's literally like a thin cloth hung, over top off of wooden poles over top of the tobacco to filter that sunlight to help preserve that kind of mild flavor out of it, right? So it's a literal interpretation of grown in the shade. There's different seed varietals in that kind of thing that we can delve into, but from the literal sense, grown in Connecticut and grown in the shade.
Yeah. Now, this is where it gets a little wonky, and this is one of those rectangles a square, square's not a rectangle thing.
Yep.
As time has gone on, that seed has been taken to other places. And so now the other big grower of Connecticut tobacco is Ecuador. And for good reason. You're talking about, Connecticut. I was reading some stuff, and there's basically giant tents essentially over this tobacco when it's grown in Connecticut. But in Ecuador, because of cloud cover and all that, they don't have to use that. So it's a lot easier to grow because you don't have to have the cloth and everything because it is so cloudy and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's literally not a thing in Ecuador, right?
Yeah,
like
I'm sure they do it some.
Yeah,
but
at times. Sure.
Yeah, that was the big reason for doing it there. Plus, different growing environment. They still have some more volcanic soil, so it's a good place to grow without the labor intensity that goes into it growing it in Connecticut, and it's also cheaper because you're not paying for American labor. Now, that does get into some nuances in the flavor, in my opinion, that comes out of Connecticut tobacco grown in Connecticut and Connecticut tobacco grown in Ecuador. If I'm not mistaken, and I didn't look at this, but I have to imagine that most cigars that have a Connecticut Shade wrapper leaf that are well known probably get their wrapper leaf from Ecuador.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I don't
have the statistics.
I don't
yeah,
have.
I'm necessarily prepared for that question, but Ecuadorian Connecticut, because of the volume,
because I'm thinking about Perdomo.
Because of the price.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Perdomo. The Connecticut that they have on all of their Connecticut
is all Ecuadorian.
Is all Ecuadorian.
Yeah.
I don't know about Fuente, but I have to imagine with Altadis General, just because of the price of it, right? Because it's easier to grow there, but it's also easier to pick and process there, not because of the environment or anything, but because of labor cost, right? So labor cost goes into the cost of the tobacco. If it's cheaper to hire people to take care of it in Ecuador, then guess what? It's going to be cheaper coming from Ecuador.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, let's be honest, it's like this is not uncommon for 99.9% of products that were once made in the United States. It kind of, it is what it is type of situation. So, to keep the price of your average cigar that you're buying at the store at a price that you're still willing to pay for it, those types of sacrifice. Now, that's not to say still plenty, probably maximum amounts that you can grow in Connecticut are probably, are still being grown.
Yeah, that's the other thing is and I don't know, this is another fact check thing, but I have to imagine there's probably more growing region in Ecuador that they can grow tobacco in, or they do grow tobacco in, just because in the States, tobacco is not what it used to be. The government subsidies you get from it aren't there anymore. That's why you don't see tobacco being grown here anymore, right?
Yeah, and the River Valley is not a huge place.
No, it's not.
It's just not. You're not gonna be able to grow. I don't think everything. And maybe one of these guys would tell me the opposite. But an outsider looking in, I don't think you would. Your general opinion of it is like, I don't think you have enough space to grow the amount that's needed to accommodate anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of like wine, right? Like you can't. We see wine grown in California in Napa, Sonoma, Mendocino, and Paso, right? You don't see grapes being grown in Los Angeles. One, because of development, but two, because the growing region, as a growing region, it wouldn't work, right? The climate doesn't work. And so for the Connecticut River Valley, with temperature fluctuations and the type of season that they have there, it just works. But if you went to somewhere on the coast or somewhere, I don't actually have never been to Connecticut, so I don't know what their geography is like, but I have to imagine that
that might be a between two burns field trip.
Yeah.
Go to Connecticut,
get a little hook up with the guys at Foundation.
Yeah, get a little tour of what's going on up there. That'd be kind of cool.
That would be. But it has the environment and the soil are the two, in my opinion, most important things when it comes to growing tobacco. So the Connecticut River Valley just has good soil and a good environment to be able to
I believe
grow
it's quite sandy.
Yeah.
Which adds kind of to that. That's part of the reason.
Yeah. So, yeah, but now when it comes to flavor differences in Connecticut, like Connecticut Shade grown in Connecticut and Connecticut grown in Ecuador, in my opinion, the Connecticut that's grown in Connecticut lends itself to be a little bit more like a rich creaminess, not as much of a citrusy and floral note. And usually Connecticut, and I'm really thinking about Charter Oak here, it'll still have a little bit of body and spice to it sometimes. Not a lot.
It's a little more difficult, I think, to get that
right
out of a Connecticut. But
whereas the Ecuadorian Connecticut, very lightly creamy, very citrusy. You get those orange peel notes and then floral. It's very floral a lot of
very,
times.
very, very floral.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's on the Hoya? Do you know? Is that Ecuadorian Connecticut?
I don't actually. I would assume so. I'll look that up.
We can find that out because I do you find that to be floral? I find that to be floral.
that was the one thing I loved about that cigar was it was floral and it had this just citrusy orange peel note and it had this like creamy, almost like earthiness to it, but it was almost like I'm going to get nerdy here. It was almost kind of like mushroomy. I don't know. I love that cigar.
Like a little umami kind of.
Yeah. Just a cigar does it for me.
Umami mushroomy? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No big deal. Technical things right there. And now when we talk about, your flavor profiles from, you have the, because you can have Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper on.
It is Ecuadorian Connecticut.
It is Ecuadorian. Yep. But that, we would consider that a Nicaraguan cigar, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can have the Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper on what we would consider different regions of the world, right? So you have your Nicaraguan Connecticut's, which I gravitate to personally. I think they have been the best innovator of Connecticut's over the last 15 years. I think now a lot of that it has to do with this, like Nicaraguan cigars as a whole has just, in my opinion, risen to the top as the cream of the crop of what you can get. Yeah. I don't know. Do you know what region is the top seller now? Is it Dominican still, or is it now Nicaragua?
It's Nicaraguan. I'm pretty sure based on the import data. Because I think it even surpassed the Cuban market like 5 or 6 years ago. Because even Cubans are illegal.
That's always hard to kind of.
Yeah, you never know with those numbers because even though Cubans are illegal in the States, the United States is still the biggest importer of Cuban cigars, which is hilarious.
Is that true?
It used to be. Yeah, it may be China now, but people just buying them online illegally and whatnot.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
But yeah, I think it's one of those things. And I'm gonna relate this back to wine a little bit. So it used to be said that Napa couldn't grow good red grapes, right? And then the Judgment of Paris happened, and that was debunked. But now it's gotten to the point where Napa is known for growing these big, bold wines. But over the last, I'd say, like 2 or 3 years, it feels like we've had more manufacturers coming into the store doing tasting saying, hey, this isn't your typical Napa Valley over extracted big bold wine. This is a much more refined version of Napa Valley, more in a French style, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like the market's going that way. Well, I think this is the same way with Nicaraguan cigars. When Nicaraguan cigars became really popular, let's call it mid 2000s or early 2000s, it was one of those things where Nicaragua was known for pepper and strength. And it was just like, who could make the strongest cigar? So you had the Hoya Antonio, not the Connecticut, the original Hoya Antonio. You had Pepin coming out with all of his stuff.
Yep.
I mean, you just had this proliferation of big, bold Nicaraguan cigars. And it felt like over the years that they just kept getting stronger, right? You had Espinosa come out with the 601. You had all AJ stuff coming out. But at some point, and I don't know exactly where to pinpoint this, it was like, okay, we've proven we can make the best bold and spicy cigar.
Yep.
Let's also prove that we can make a more mild to medium refined cigar that's not going to be as strong in nicotine, but is still going to be really flavorful. And that's where we've landed.
And maybe
now.
more approachable from the
general consumer
standpoint, right? Because let's be honest, we're still in a world where the average, I think, cigar consumer is still mild to medium.
Yeah.
At its peak versus like the full stuff. Now we sell maybe our customer base is not necessarily like that, but I think the overall general population of cigar smokers, I think, still falls in that, strength profile. Where if we're scaling it 1 to 10 in that 3 to 6 kind of range, right?
It's funny because I've talked about this with Austin and Cole a little bit. It's so fascinating to see how a retailer's procurement of their humidor can shape their customers' palates. And this is tangential, but our customer base likes usually a more full-bodied Nicaraguan cigar, but that's because our humidor, if I was guessing, was probably at least 75% Nicaraguan. And that's from a long time of Larry back when he owned it, not wanting to bring in anything from Altadis or General because he was 20 minutes down the road from JR's. So he didn't want to compete with them. He wanted to curate something special, give people a reason to come to the store. And at the time, that was your more boutique Nicaraguan cigars that were more full-bodied. And so that's kind of how we got here. That is super tangential, but it's a fascinating thing to think about.
Yeah, as to whether or not what the consumer comes in and you offer them, if that shapes, what their overall profile is. Because I think there's a lot of people who just maybe gravitated towards Connecticut's or something mild or medium that just get kind of intimidated by something more full, right? And I don't want to say forced into something more full, but when you're encouraged or it's talked about in a informative way, they're more apt to kind of take that leap into it, and then suddenly you're down that path.
Yeah,
right?
And you can see that with companies too, because over the last, we'll call it 10 years, the companies that are known, I'm going to use General and Altadis again, and Davidoff for that matter, known for your more mild Dominican, usually Connecticut wrapped cigars, have started building out a portfolio with stronger stuff in it, right? Like Davidoff did the Nicaragua and the Yamasa and the Oscuro. The Monte Cristo and Romeo went to AJ, right? They've got the Monte by AJ, the Romeo by AJ, the Upman by AJ. Cohiba's General's done the Rubicon. They've done the Diesel with AJ. So it's almost like you saw these companies who were the kings of the mild cigars trying to capture some of the full-bodied market, and the guys that were the kings of the full-body cigars saying, hey, we want to capture some of that mild to medium market. And so it's kind of funny to look at. I've never thought about it before until we're sitting here talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly if you're running a company or whatever it is, you're looking for opportunities to make money, right? And if you feel like there's a void in your own business or maybe a void in the market, whether that's your wheelhouse or not, a lot of times there's an attraction to kind of fill that gap. And a lot of companies, take that opportunity. Now, does everybody do it well?
No,
You
but
know
it's good for the consumer, if nothing else, because it provides more options. And it's funny because if I meet a customer that says they've been smoking cigars for a long time, a lot of them will say, "Oh, I miss the old days. Like, cigars were better back then." And I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. I think farming techniques and everything have gotten better, and we're at a point now where the cigars that we have are the best cigars that have ever been made in the history of the world.
Yes.
And this is super tangential. We've gotten off track. I'm sorry. But anyways, it's just, it's interesting to see how people are playing with different tobaccos like this cigar, what Fuente's been doing, Fuente doing the Nicaraguan stuff, my father going to Honduras, all that kind of stuff. But Connecticut is still the number one wrapper. Right? Like, even though all of this stuff is going on, bringing it back full circle, getting back to Connecticut here. It's still a wrapper that everybody wants to work with. And if you're a good cigar company, you have a good Connecticut Shade wrapper in your portfolio.
Yeah, I don't think you could. Again, this is one of those things like somebody in the comments will be like, nope, this company doesn't. But I don't think there's nobody I can think of, and maybe you can point it out if you can think of somebody that doesn't have a Connecticut version of any of their cigars. Do you get anybody that comes off the top of your head?
Not unless they're super boutique and they just have like one cigar line out.
But even some of the more boutique stuff that we carry, like Roma's got,
they've got the EC.
Yep.
Warped obviously
does.
Piece Unique.
Yep. Aganorsa does. Now, some don't do it all the same. Warped has Piece Unique, which is I would put it in that ultra premium category as far as price is concerned. But he's
got La Colmena.
La Colmena. That was the one I was trying to think of. That's a bit more.
He saves it for some more limiteds, like the Cocodrillo Perfecto we just got in.
Awesome, by the way.
The El Oso.
Shout out, Kyle. That cigar
was
sick.
Awesome. He did the El Oso Papa last year, and then I think it was called the Bianco or something like that, and that was Connecticut. But yeah, they've all got it. Like Tatuaje's got the Capaguan. Plasencia just came out with the Cielo, and while that thing, I don't know that thing is Connecticut. It might as well be Connecticut. If they tell me it's Corojo, I don't know about that.
Oh, I thought it was Connecticut. Is it not?
I actually don't know.
Interesting.
I'm gonna look that up
real quick. Do a little research. So when we talk about the different regions, and we're talking about it, we talked about Nicaragua a little bit, which I think you can get into the more distinct flavoring. I think the most common and probably still the most popular Connecticut is the Dominican Connecticut. Mm-hmm. You're gonna get if we're
Cielo is Nicaraguan apparently from Condega.
Okay, there you go.
Nah, whatever. I still think it's Connecticut Shade, but whatever.
It certainly looks it.
Connecticut Shade grown in Nicaragua.
Listen, it walks like a duck, smells like talks like a duck, it quacks like a duck as a duck.
Anyways,
but the Dominican you get the more. I think is the Dominican Connecticut, I believe, in my opinion, is the most mild of all of the cigars that you can get, generally speaking. I think it's a super beginner friendly, if that's a thing in cigars. If you're new to it, beginner friendly cigar is not the Ecuadorian, but the Dominican Connecticut. We talked about how the Nicaraguan has a bit, you can play with it a little bit more. I think with fillers and binders, you get a bit more spice out of it. Obviously, you're smoking, I'm smoking the Charter Oak Nicaraguan as well. You're smoking the Zeno Nicaragua, which in fact is not Nicaraguan in that sense. I'm sure I don't know. maybe on the boat it waves at Nicaragua as it goes by.
That's right.
And then you do have Hondurans, which I think
the Honduran Connecticut's interesting.
Very interesting. I'm not as big if you're putting them all in front of me, that would be the one I would take last. Now, there's also this, who is doing it and when they were doing it, because I think original Camacho, that would be Honduran Connecticut's, were better than the version I think that you're getting now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was reading an article, and you may have seen the same one on Cigar Aficionado, talking about like Connecticut Shade, and they interviewed Christian Iroa back when he still owned Camacho, and they had just come out with the Camacho Connecticut, and it was the same. He had the same idea of like, hey, I have more full-bodied cigars. Let me make something a little bit more mild, but it's still flavorful.
Yeah.
Now the only ones that I can think of that are actually growing Connecticut in Honduras, not taking wrapper leaf from Connecticut or Ecuador and putting it on something, but growing it in Honduras, I think is still his family. So it would be CLE or Aladino that use a true Honduran Connecticut. But that'd be a fact check thing, because that's a weird growing region.
Yeah, you get a far, and these are not negative terms, but you get a far earthier. Mm-hmm. This is going to sound like it's negative, but it's not, because I feel like you get a dirtier version.
Yeah, Connecticut.
Like
Connecticut.
Hondurans in general, I think you get that. But
yeah, I agree.
But we've been proven a little bit, not to say wrong, but shown what you can do with Honduras since the blue Honduran has come out.
Yeah, and
no, that's not a Connecticut, obviously, but
yeah, because the thing about Connecticut Shade cigars is the delicacy of them, right? Like the nuance of it, the lighter flavors of it. And so when you start having that earthy, mossy, like dirty influence into it, it kind of takes away from the elegance of it.
Yes. Yep. All right. So we're gonna do the offshoot now, because there is the other main Connecticut. Now, while this is not Connecticut Shade, the Connecticut Broadleaf wrapper is something. When did Broadleaf really start becoming a thing?
So I was reading an article from Cigar Aficionado that was written in 2000, and they were talking about Connecticut Broadleaf. So a little history on Connecticut Broadleaf. There was a guy. Actually, let me back up. The main type of tobacco being grown in Connecticut for a long time was called shoestring tobacco.
Okay.
Don't know where it got its name from.
Nope.
But there was a guy that brought a seed varietal from Maryland up to Connecticut to be grown, and it was broadleaf. And that seed varietal is actually still grown in Connecticut today as broadleaf. But the problem with broadleaf is that it is very hard to grow, and it is very hard to work with, and it is very hard to ferment. Like, it is probably if you ask anybody, the hardest wrapper or tobacco in general to grow and work with, because of how finicky it is.
Yep.
The low yields that you get, it's ugly. And if you're putting a wrapper leaf on a cigar, that's why Ecuadorian Connecticut's so valuable, is because they grow pretty wrapper leaf.
Yeah.
You want it to be a pretty wrapper leaf, and it is not that.
Yeah, and if you're a new and you're not thinking about what the difference is, we're talking about watching this. So we've got 5 cigars sitting in front of us. 4 are traditional Connecticut Shade wrappers, and 1 is a Connecticut Broadleaf. They are, on the color scale, polar opposites, right? So your Connecticut Shade is traditionally what you see in the store, that kind of pale, light tan brown, and your Broadleafs are that rugged, deep, dark, near black.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Fermented. It looks
toothy is my
toothy and
favorite
chewy.
descriptor for.
It looks like you could hang from it, right?
Yep.
Like if it was in here. So while still coming from the same regions, a completely different. You tell me. Like this is where you're going to educate me a little bit. Are we talking the same seed varietals, grown in a different way? So it's a completely different seed varietal, correct?
Yep. Completely different seed varietal. I was, like I said, I was reading this article in Aficionado, and this article is from 2000, right? So
right at the beginning of when Broadleaf was kind of becoming.
Yeah, it was getting used, but they were talking about how a lot of it was used in backwoods, like the machine-made backwoods.
Oh, okay,
cigar, right? But at the time, Lito Gomez.
Riches, man.
Yeah, no kidding. Lito was being interviewed in this, and he was using broadleaf on his El Jaco, which they still make today. But he was saying how hard it was because only about 30% of the crop was deemed worthy enough to be used as wrapper leaf, right?
Wow.
So, they may grow a lot of it, but it is the most expensive tobacco in the world, and still to this day is. And the problem has become that there's not a big growing region, and it's super expensive, but the flavor of it has become so popular and so many companies use it that there's a shortage of it, right? So something I didn't know for a long time is that Arturo Fuente uses Connecticut Broadleaf on their Maduros. Well, Fuente makes millions of cigars a year, right?
Millions, yeah.
So then you've got,
I didn't realize that.
yep.
Interesting.
So then you've got Drew Estate, right?
Yeah.
Using it on Undercrown and Liga Privada. That's why Liga Privada number 9 was such a big deal back in the day, was because it had broadleaf on it. Now you've got people like Nick Malio using it on Charter Oak and Tabernacle. You've got Steve Saka using it. You've got Romacraft was using it, but this is a good case example of how little there is available of it and how popular it is. Romacraft was using it on the Cro-Magnon, which was arguably their most popular line, but they couldn't get it. So they had to reblend Cro-Magnon, I think it was last year, and change the wrapper leaf on it, and they started using Pennsylvania broadleaf on it instead of Connecticut broadleaf. And Pennsylvania broadleaf, in my opinion, like that's like comparing Bud Light to Brown Truck's American Light Lager. Like it is not good compared to
when you compare it to the other one.
When you compare it to the other one, it's much more.
And in that scenario, FYI, shout out Brown Truck guys. You're the Brown Truck. You're the Connecticut broadleaf. Yeah, that's right.
It is a different flavor profile. It is much earthier, much more dirty. It's got a lot of minerality to it. I'm talking about Pennsylvania right now. And so them doing that and doing it well, shout out to Romacraft because good for you. But it goes to show how little of the stuff there is. Because if you're a small producer of cigars like Romacraft is, you just don't have access to it. So anytime people are wondering why we don't have Tabernacle Maduro in stock,
it's because
the king of Connecticut can't get it, right? Like it's because, and not only that, sorry, I'm rolling now.
Rolling, baby, rolling.
It's very hard to grow. So if you have a very wet growing season, forget about it.
Yeah.
Right. You get, there's something in the soil called brown spot fungus. And what'll happen is it's in the soil. And so when it rains, it'll splash up onto the leaves and cause this discoloration and fungus to grow that can either ruin the leaf or it's not going to at least be able to be used for wrapper leaf because it would be splotchy and disgusting. Might be able to be used for binders and fillers, maybe. But that wrapper leaf is just so hard to get and so hard to grow. It's also incredibly thick. It's hard to work with. It's veiny, right? So it can't have big, basically stems is what it looks like. It's so thick. So the veins look like stems. So you can't have that on a wrapper leaf. It just wouldn't look good. So like you've got all these factors that go into it. But with that being said, it has such a unique and distinct flavor profile that so many consumers love, including myself, that it's incredibly sought after, which makes it supply and demand really expensive.
Yeah, really expensive. And, you know, like you said with the Tabernacle, and it's not just Tabernacle, you know, anybody growing broadleaf or purchasing broadleaf for those reasons, when we don't see it on the shelves, that's why, right? It's like literally not able to come in, or if there's just a box or two.
Yeah, and that's why, like I said, the whole Pennsylvania broadleaf thing, like why don't more people use Pennsylvania broadleaf? It's for the exact reasons that I just said. It takes someone that's very good at making cigars to be able to replicate with any semblance the taste of Connecticut broadleaf using Pennsylvania broadleaf. But, you know, it's one of these things where it's so hard to get, where companies like Aladino, or just the Iroa family in general, are trying to grow broadleaf in Honduras right now because, again, they can't get it.
Yeah.
So it literally, like one of my favorite cigars of all time, the Tatuaje TAA, uses broadleaf, and the creaminess but the meatiness that you get from it is just so distinct and so good. That's why I say, like, my favorite wrapper leaf, if you were asking me, is good broadleaf. Now, the problem is there's a lot of bad broadleaf out there because if it's under-fermented, it still has that very minerally, almost metallic taste to it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Not good.
Yeah, we've had some instances where we've had some of that in the past, and it's glaring, like glaring. Coming out of COVID, I think there was some, and during COVID when the boom was going and guys were trying to get product on the shelves because there was such a demand that some of it I think was rushed.
Yeah, well, and that goes, this goes back to the Shade versus this broadleaf. You know, Connecticut Shade tobacco only has to hang for somewhere between 50 to 60 days normally. Whereas broadleaf, you know, if they have a bad crop in 2021, we aren't going to see the effects of that until now. right?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like you said, with COVID and everything and the boom, they worked through the supplies of the mid to 2010s.
Yep.
And now we're at the point where they did have bad crops. They had
Yep.
really wet growing seasons. They had really bad weather. And so not only is there not a lot of it, there's more people that want to use it now than ever. And so we've gotten to this point where it is just incredibly hard to get and have access to.
Yeah, and like you said, it's you have those issues and stuff like that. Even across the board, excuse me. Connecticut, whether it's Shade or the Broadleaf, is a very, even though there's loads of Shade cigars, it's an unforgiving wrapper leaf.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, with the unforgiving part in the Broadleaf part is it's so thick, it's so toothy, the delicacy that it is to the growing, the sensitivity, I should say, to the growing stuff like that makes it hard to work with. And then it's very unforgiving on the Shade part because it's so light and so delicate, it's prone to damage, in visual. Like you want, because it's so light and pale comparatively to other things, there's something to be said that in a darker Maduro, you can hide some...
You can hide imperfections
and, and that kind of thing. It's way, way harder to do with a Shade wrapper, right?
Yeah.
Like when it comes to veininess, when it comes to poor construction or whatever it is, and it's thin.
Yeah, so
right?
like
it's very thin.
Two things here. Like right before we were about to start this podcast, I cut this Charter Oak for you, and this is not the cigar's fault. It's probably the cutter we were using's fault, but I cut it, and I don't know if you can see it on camera, but the wrapper leaf just cracked, and it's just because that wrapper leaf is so thin. This cigar is properly humidified.
Yep.
But if you have a ever so slightly dull cutter,
which we did.
Yep. You're going to pop it and crack it. But the other thing is, like, you're smoking Charter Oak right now, and I glanced over, and you've about burnt through it, but there was a green spot on the wrapper leaf.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that it's under fermented or anything, but that becomes very glaring when you've got this hay and straw colored wrapper leaf.
Yeah, there's a high contrast. Like you would never pick up of that or notice that on a Maduro or a Broadleaf wrapper just because of the coloration. And like, even when it comes to, like you said, cutting it, lighting it.
Yeah.
If you're not lighting your cigars properly with the correct distance from your lighter to your cigar, you're going to look down and you're like, well, what the hell happened? Because you're going to have black all the way up to here. You're like, oh my God, it's because that wrapper is so delicate and so prone to the heat that you can damage it like that and then be like, oh, well, what happened to it? It's like, you gotta, even though it's so popular and there's so many of them, it's still, you need to handle it with care.
Yeah, like even and I'll use my cigar I'm smoking as an example again, not the cigar's fault, but I took the wrapper, the band off of it, and when I did, it peeled some off, and that's not because someone made the cigar incorrectly. It's because when they put the band on, they got a little bit of the vegetable pectin on the wrapper leaf, and when it dried, it just peels off really easy because it's so thin
and so delicate. Like that probably just would not happen on the Broadleaf because the Broadleaf is so rugged and tough and thick.
Yeah.
But that it's so thin and delicate on the Shade wrapper, which it's supposed to be, right? It needs, good care and, proper, quality control throughout the whole thing, to kind of get it in that space. And you can see, all right, so we've got the 5 cigars in front of us. We've got our Pipe and Pint Churchill, right? Made by Aganorsa, Nicaraguan. You got the Zeno Nicaragua that we've talked about. You've got Drew Estate's Blackened Shade to Black is what they call that. And then we've got the Charter Oak Connecticut and then the Charter Oak Connecticut Broadleaf. And you can see, these are all, again, we've not negotiated, but we've argued the Zeno and what's what. But I think all of these probably have Ecuadorian Connecticut wrappers on them.
The Charter Oak does not.
The Charter Oak does not.
Yeah,
Charter Oak has
the Charter Oak. Yeah, so the Charter Oak Nick's shtick with that is
that's his. Yeah,
it's an expression of Connecticut. So this one actually
that's my bad if you're listening, Nick or Eduardo or Nate. My bad. That's a
Nick's
glaring
gonna
obvious.
Smite you.
Yeah, fuck you, Jason.
The Charter Oak, when he came out with the line, wanted it to be an expression of Connecticut.
Yeah.
So it's Connecticut Shade, Connecticut
my apologies
Shade,
to the King of Connecticut,
and then Connecticut Broadleaf. So, these are good examples of Connecticut cigars, and we'll talk about them a little bit more at the end about what we're going to do. But one thing else, kind of circling back here, that I want to talk about Connecticut Broadleaf. Most of the time, Connecticut Broadleaf is going to be fermented to Maduro Oscuro levels, right?
Yeah.
Super, super dark.
Yep.
Because it has to be. But, fun fact, I was thinking about what cigars have a natural or Rosado Connecticut Broadleaf wrapper on them, and that is the My Father Blue. My Father Blue has a Connecticut Broadleaf Rosado wrapper on it.
The new blue?
Yes.
The new Honduras blue?
Yes.
Really?
Yep. And
right.
I was just thinking about it. I was like, what else out there has a Rosado Connecticut Broadleaf wrapper on it? I don't know. I can't think of any. I'm
Yeah,
sure,
I mean,
I'm 100% sure there are, but I can't think of any.
Yeah, drop us a comment if you know something that we're not thinking about, because I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
There's a million cigars that we don't get to put our hands on every year, but that, for me personally, you just always think of
It's always
the broadleaf being a Maduro.
Yeah, it's always dark. And
Yeah.
but again, it goes back to the point of it almost has to
But
be.
visually, that blue looks as dark as that to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I'm going to fact check myself here, but I'm 99% sure they claim that it is a Connecticut Broadleaf Rosado wrapper. Doing a little half wheeling here while we're sitting here.
Yeah, good podcasting.
Yeah, I know. Fill the void. Yeah, USA Connecticut Broadleaf. Yep.
It is.
Yep. And then Honduran binders and fillers. Fascinating, right?
Great cigar.
Yeah.
Great
Anyways.
cigar. We cannot keep that cigar.
No.
So that's an unbelievable example of what you can do with Connecticut stuff.
Yep.
Down the line or whatever, that kind of thing. Like that's one of the most popular cigars. So if you throw that into the mix along with, like, let's say Perdomo Legacy, which we've hashed out on this podcast a million times already, how much of a fans we are of that Connecticut right now, is on my, Mount Rushmore of Connecticut's right now. For me, it's that Perdomo Legacy. It's so creative and unique compared to everything. I love the Hoya Connecticut. I love the Cabaguan from Tatuaje. And probably if I was doing another one, it's probably Charter Oak.
Yeah.
Because, when you throw in all the things, like consistency from Connecticut, value-wise, I think those would be the four that I personally would gravitate to the most.
Yeah. If you're doing the Mount Rushmore of Shade, I'll do the Mount Rushmore Broadleaf. Tabernacle, Tatuaje, TAA. If I had to pick one, it'd be the 50th. Although last year's or the year before's was really good. I think you have to put Liga 9 on there, although it's not one of my favorites. But that cigar specifically was like...
It's kind of the OG
kind of, yeah,
to it, right?
Yeah,
it's kind of the
yeah.
one... Yeah, I'm sure there was Broadleafs before it, but it's kind of the one that paved the way, right? Kind of the building blocks of what people realize what we're going to be able to do with Broadleaf and what that's going to be like.
Yeah. And then a fourth one, honestly, I don't know. It'd probably be something that I don't smoke a lot of, like the 858 Maduro or something. And I'm gonna double fact check myself again here and make sure that I'm not lying to people when I say Fuente uses broadleaf. But I'm pretty sure even things like the 858 are using a Connecticut broadleaf wrapper leaf.
Like that 858, like the RSG you're talking, or?
Yeah, Connecticut broadleaf wrapper. Yep. No, not the RSG, but like the 858. Like the 858.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
so Connecticut broadleaf wrapper leaf.
Oh wow, that I didn't
Yeah,
realize.
I mean, like I feel like you've got to put something like that on a Mount Rushmore, although it's not, again, necessarily what I gravitate to.
Yeah.
But when it comes to popularizing the wrapper leaf, if I was picking one personally, it would be the Cro-Magnon, the old Cro-Magnon. I absolutely love that cigar. But anyways, it's like I said, problem is there's so little of it. Right? Like we've talked about, like I would love to see Connecticut broadleaf on some of our other favorite cigars, just to see what would happen with flavor. Like I'd love to see Aganorsa work with some broadleaf at some point.
Yeah, me too.
They're the kings of Corojo in my opinion.
Yep.
But it's just so hard to get. And when
if you could put Connecticut Broadleaf on an existing Aganorsa blend.
Anniversario.
I was just gonna say Anniversario.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then excuse me. An Anniversario Broadleaf would be sick.
Yeah, and if I could put a Connecticut Shade on an existing blend, it would probably be. Man, I don't know. Actually,
You're talking from Aganorsa?
No.
Or
no.
just
in
generally
general.
speaking.
Like I'm trying to.
I would like to see. I'm going to cycle through. Padron does not do much with Connecticut.
So I was going to talk about them in a second. We can circle back to that.
Okay, we'll circle back to that.
So and
I think Kyle could do some stuff with a value Connecticut.
Yeah.
At Warped, I think would be really cool because
Yeah.
of the care that they take, that he takes with the things that he produces the same way I think the guys at Foundation do.
Yeah.
I
wouldn't mind seeing Tatuaje do another Connecticut. As much as I love the Capaguan, I wouldn't mind seeing Pete work with like a Cajonu and doing a Connecticut just to see what happened. But I want to, before we get into the Padron thing, talk about just how much Wrapper Leaf influences a blend. So this was a cigar that unfortunately never came to fruition, but it's one that you will remember. Back right when you had purchased the Pipe and Pint from Larry, you had Terrence blend up some La Colonia Connecticut's for us.
Yeah.
And this was the original La Colonia blend from back in 2012. And we had 10 of them. They were Toro sized. And it was so different from the original La Colonia blend, but it was still La Colonia, but it was so Cuban. It was so creamy. It still had pepper to it, but it had those citrusy straw hay notes to it. Maybe one day that cigar will come out. Who knows? But that cigar, just when you look at all we did, or all Aganorsa did, was flip the Wrapper Leaf. Everything else was the same. But it changed the flavor profile so much.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah.
So, it really does go to show how it makes a difference. And I think it, in my opinion, no offense to Terrence, because he would tell me I'm wrong, but I think it kind of puts a little bit of a kink in the argument that the Wrapper Leaf doesn't drive the flavor of the cigar, because our good friend, Mike Martello, has had the privilege to go down to Miami, and he was telling me, he was smoking different cigars, and all they were doing were taking Wrapper Leafs going from a Habano, Oscuro to a Habano Rosado, and not changing anything else. And it was just two completely different cigars, all because of the Wrapper Leaf. So it just goes to show how much of a factor and a driver the Wrapper Leaf is for the flavor profile of the cigar. Now, when it comes to Padron, I agree with you. I would love to see Padron do something with Connecticut again, but they came out with a Damaso.
Yep. Yeah, that's the only Connecticut I can think
That is
of,
the
right?
only Connecticut.
That's the only Connecticut, right? And that's pricey, right?
It is expensive. When it came out, it was expensive. It was like $13 to $17, and that was probably 10 years ago. And as much as I love Padron, that cigar sucks. It is terrible. It is not. It's not Padron, but it's also just not a good Connecticut. And I don't know why.
Full transparency, I don't think I've ever smoked it.
I'm surprised, honestly, that they still make it. I'm surprised they haven't reworked it.
I'm just surprised that there's not a core line Connecticut 1000 series from Padron.
Yeah, and I think Padron's probably if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing.
I understand.
Yep. But I mean, that Damaso, I was so excited for it when it came out. I remember I smoked it the first time, and it was just, it was overly aggressive to be a Connecticut, but it also was boring. So it was like peppery and kind of creamy, but it stayed peppery. I don't know. It just, it was
almost like forced.
Yeah, it was not.
It has to fit into this profile. So
Correct.
whatever we can do to get it into this profile, doctor it up until it gets there.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's exactly right.
All right, so what we're going to do, if you're listening, you're going to see it in the newsletter. We'll post it to Instagram in a couple of days, probably sending you an email. So for those of you who want to try what we've talked about today, we put together this sampler. All right, so we've got a Pipe and Pint Connecticut Churchill made by our friends at Aganorsa with us, the Zeno Nicaraguan Toro, the Charter Oak Broadleaf Toro, Shade to Black, Drew Estate Blackened Toro as well, and then the Shade Robusto from Charter Oak as well. Putting the whole thing together, 5-pack sampler. We're going $29.99, correct, on it? We're going to be doing only a handful of these things, so it's not going to be available all the time in all the stores or anything like that. So you'll get an email about it, probably get a text message about it. You know about it here. It'll be available on the website. We'll put it out there for you. So it's a great way to try the kind of the gamut of the things that we've talked about. And then we'll see how that works out. If everybody likes it, we can continue to do that. But I think it's a great way for you to get your hands on everything that we've talked about, kind of experience it from. And now there's not everything Connecticut in here. There's, you've got a variation of things. But I think it's a good representation of good Connecticut. Also slide that broadleaf in there to get that, full vibe. I think it was educational.
Yeah.
You taught me stuff.
Man.
Teaching all the dog new tricks, man. All right, before we go, I want to do a little bit on, so at the moment, we're 50-50. For those of you who follow us, stuff like that, we did our live shows from PCA last year. We're in New Orleans. We want to do that again. We're just running into this store opening potentially around the same time. So we're 50-50 whether or not we're going to be in New Orleans. But I did want to talk about PCA a little bit, about what if we are there, what we might expect to see, what you might expect to see from us, what we could be talking about, and what we're expecting as far as maybe some new cigar releases going into that. So PCA, a couple weeks in New Orleans. Right now, like I said, we're 50-50. We want to go. We're going to try our hardest to go. But getting this store open for everybody who's listening is
much more important.
Way, 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 way more important. We can be right back at PCA next year when it's in Las Vegas again. So that's not a problem. But we do enjoy our time there. It's fun doing the live shows after the fact. We get to see cool people. We want to make sure that the Pipe and Pint is always in the mix with what's going on. People around the country know who we are. And, being part of that content creation, whatever it is. But few things I think we expect to see.
Yep.
I've seen one of the main things I think that would directly affect us. You have the new father and son legacy from Perdomo.
Yep.
That's going to be another one of the big, I think, highlights of the show. Yeah. In my opinion, I haven't seen as many big, lavish new releases this year. Have you?
No, but a lot of people have been quiet about what they're doing. So I just pulled up the list of all the brands that we carry. So I'll do a rapid fire real quick.
Rapid fire.
Placencia, the only thing I've seen is samplers.
Yep.
My father, there's rumblings of what's coming, but they haven't announced anything, so I don't want to say anything.
If I was pontificating, there's something's going to be an anniversary.
Yeah.
They usually do that. I thought we heard maybe rumblings of Cuban Classic, potentially.
Yep.
Don't hold me to that. I don't know that to be true. We've heard rumblings that Cuban Classic would be the anniversary this year.
Yeah, and maybe
which would be cool. I love that cigar. Yeah. We don't carry it all the time. I wouldn't mind carrying it back in. I think it's a great cigar.
Yeah.
It's even unique, in my opinion, in the My Father lineup a little bit. Yeah. And when we do have it, people really gravitate to it and grab it. It was when I was smoking DPG Blue a lot, I was kind of full pull in the full pull in the My Father waters. So that was a cigar that I really enjoyed. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. But if I had to guess, there is some sort of anniversary going to be dropped from them.
Camacho Avozino, hadn't seen anything other than a new Davidoff, which we won't get. Foundation, no earthly idea.
I think
I'm sure they have something, but I ain't got no
They
clue.
probably have something. I don't think it's going to be earth-shattering, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They, to no fault of their own, had their issues last year on production because of the things that happened with the facilities that they use. So for them to focus, I think, on the stuff that we all want on a consistent basis is a really good idea.
Yep.
Now, I don't know that to be the case. I do think that if they were dropping something earth-shattering, we would know about it by now.
Yeah, my guess is it's going to be line extensions.
Yeah, if it's anything, I think it's line extensions. Yeah.
AJ, speaking of things that happened last year, his new cigar is called Amar. It's a testament to them rebuilding after the fire that happened last year.
Yep.
Haven't smoked it yet, but that is coming. Aganorsa has a slew of new things that aren't really new.
They're more kind of variations and line extensions.
Yeah, so Anniversario Tubo in the Connecticut.
Anniversario Tubo, Connecticut, a Toro in the JFR.
Hombre Libre, which is already available at the Pipe and Pint.
Oh, yeah, we do have that. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Good value, $9.75 retail on it. Smoke it if you hadn't, Toro size. So if you don't like big ring gauge and you want to smoke Lunatic, good cigar. They're releasing the Supreme Leaf International to non-international markets, i.e. they've already made the cigars and we can buy them now. So
yeah, I'd love to get a little bit of clarification on what the international means. If
it's different sizes.
If it's different sizes, I mean, it's a Robusto and a Toro, which they've certainly done in the regular Supreme Leaf. But if it's I don't know if it's a variation in the blend. I'll be honest, when Terrence did the video and showing it, it looked a bit darker than the rest of the Supreme Leafs to me.
Yep.
So I'm glad you're kind of confirming, because I didn't ask you about that before. But when he was showing it off, it looked a couple of hues darker than the rest of Supreme Leaf.
Yep.
And then you're probably less excited. I think it's a cool thing, but it depends on how people are going to gravitate to it. They are going to do a Supreme Leaf sampler.
Actually, no, I'm excited about that.
Oh, yeah, okay,
it's the fresh pack that I think's weird.
Yeah, they are a fresh pack, but the fresh pack thing I think fits a market. Yeah, fits a market that and we do fresh packs, and we'll probably have them at some point in time. But the Supreme Leaf sampler I think could be cool. Now, it's a sampler. So how many was it? 13?
I don't know.
I feel like it was 13. I don't know that to be true.
Because some years they've done 2, some years they've done 1, but it's one of every single size Supreme Leaf that they've released.
Yeah, it's in that 12 to 15 range, I think. It's more than 10, I believe. But
my guess is retail on it's probably going to be 170, 150, 170, somewhere around there if I was guessing.
Yeah, probably.
I'd say cost average on those is probably $14.
And it's cool to get your hands on some of the sizes that aren't available anymore that you might really like. Now, be interested in how we handle it if we're only going to sell it as samplers or whatever, because I could see people cherry picking certain sizes. I was going to say,
I would cherry pick the Rothschild out of all of them.
Yeah, the Rothschild was awesome. Awesome. Yeah, probably my favorite one. But I really liked, I only got to smoke the one and grabbed it quickly because they went out fast. I really liked the 109.
Yeah,
the 109 was excellent.
On
yeah. Oh, yeah. So newsletter coming out in the next couple of days after we post this, so we can include this in our newsletter. But you did do a review of the Supreme Leaf 109, and you were
I was very high on it.
Very complimentary of it.
Very high on it.
And, your opinion carries as much weight as anybody in the industry. So.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
You're
welcome. Anyways, moving on. Rocky Patel's got the Sapphire coming out, part of the new color series. I guess he's doing gold.
I don't know anything about it.
I don't either. I don't either. Whatever.
It
looks like the gold and the emerald.
Yeah.
It's just sapphire.
Yep. It was packed. I mean, packaging looks cool. I think packaging is influencing pricing a little too heavy with them right now, in my opinion.
And then they're doing the year of the...
I don't know what this year is.
I don't know.
Oh, wait. Is this year of the horse?
Dog. I think this is year that...
Was last year of the horse?
We
got year of the horse from...
I think it is year of the horse.
Placencia.
Yeah, I think it is year of the horse. Perdomo, we already talked about that. Fuente, I'm sure, is going to say that the Sex Panther's coming. And
go back to... before you go back to Perdomo a little bit. So, I don't know much about this cigar. It falls in the legacy line. So are we running back with the wrapper leaf combo that we did last time, which I would not be mad at?
So yes and no.
Okay.
The father and son legacy is one size. It's I believe box press perfecto. It's going to come in 50 count chest, not coming till Q4, they said. So this is end of the year.
Yep.
What they said about it is that it is the lower primings of that Corojo Cameroon hybrid wrapper leaf.
Oh, interesting.
So according to them, you get more of the Cameroon influence in the flavor profile than the original, because the ones that we have right now, I believe, are higher priming. I 100% believe that, as strong as they can be and as peppery as they are. So my guess is that this is going to be a more dialed back version that may fit Nick Sr.'s palate a little bit more.
Okay.
Right? But I don't know. But that's what they said about it. And like I said, one size, 50 count chest. I'm sure we'll get it. But
I'm here for it because, they really, really, not just me, but impress people with the legacy. I thought for them, they fit a very tight mold as far as their profile is concerned.
Yeah.
And I feel like they stepped outside of that with Legacy a little bit, but
Yeah.
in an absolute, they did it right.
Yep.
Like it's right up there with some of my favorite cigars. The Shade Grown is awesome. Love the Connecticut. I'm not as big on the Maduro of it. I don't think, excuse me, the nuance and that uniqueness comes out as much in the
I think
Maduro
it gets
that it does.
overwhelmed
Yeah, a
by
little
the
bit, but
Broadleaf, yeah.
the other two are just, and that was reflected in ratings and reviews across
Yeah, it seems
the
like
cigar world.
everybody.
Everybody kind of
had that
had it
opinion.
on there. That and the blue from my father for sure.
Like I said, Fuente, they'll probably have some limited cool stuff that'll come at some point. Maybe we don't know, including
Yeah,
the Sex Panther.
some
that
rarities.
Maybe I don't know.
They've been.
Pink,
I will say they have been pushing. We call it Sex Panther, which is a huge miss on their part that they did not. I mean, if you could have used the tagline 60% of the time, it works every time.
Man.
And it's not out of their wheelhouse to use a name like that. But they are calling it Black Pink. It has been all over the interwebs. Now, I had somebody ask me because they're like, hey, are you guys TAA? We've talked about it in the past. We're certainly eligible and we haven't. But I believe those retailers are getting it first.
Yeah, it's shipped. I've seen it on some secondary marketplaces. It's out in the wild now.
So I think you'll probably see it with us probably towards the end of the year.
Yeah, my guess is
It's
October.
probably in that holiday release and
Yeah.
stuff for them. Yeah.
But who knows what else they'll have. LFD apparently has some new stuff coming, but we don't know what. Padron, I'm sure that they'll probably do a random one-off size of either Anniversario or Black again. Like last year they did the 99. The year before that they did the 97, but we won't know until we get there if we go.
Yeah, they kind of hold that tight to the chest on whatever
Yep.
they do. Yep.
Romacraft, I have no earthly idea. Esteban Carreras, I'm pretty sure Esteban Carreras doesn't know what they're releasing at the show until the day
It's
before the show.
My favorite thing at the trade show is going to see the boys at Esteban.
It's electric. Electric.
It's electric in the most opposite of electric way that you can get.
Yeah, and
And
I
we-
wish
and
we could record the conversation. But
we love our guys
would
there.
it would not be good.
Craig's the man. Craig, Craig's who I want to be when I grow up, kind of thing. That kind of thing. But it's hysterical popping in on those boys and what they've got going on.
Yeah.
And not only do we not know, like you said, what they're doing, the gentlemen that work there do not know yet what they're doing.
No, Mark,
It's
our
just gonna
rep,
show
who is
up
like
in a box.
the most tenured guy at Esteban Carreras other than Craig, he doesn't know. He don't know until like literally the week of the show.
Yeah.
Tatuaje, I have heard rumbles and rumorings of certain things, but the only thing that I'm sure will be there will be a new PCA exclusive that won't
Yep.
come until January of next year. So who knows?
Yeah. If you're tat lover,
You know
how it
goes.
works.
You
We're
know
going to
how
go to the show. We're going to order the special stuff. It's going to be 6 months at the earliest before you see anything from
Yeah.
them.
Who
That's
knows?
just how they do it. That's how they've basically kind of always done it. I think a lot of it is, hey, we need to know what the demand is for these things before we, dip our toes too far down the water.
Drew Estate, you've already, if you were lucky enough to get one of the early access samplers, have already smoked the 2 new cigars. One of them is flavored. We do know what it is. I cannot tell you what it is. The other one is a traditional cigar. I smoked it. I liked it. Thought it was pretty good. I hope it retails for like $10 to $12. If it's any more than that,
It's kind of out of the profile.
kind of out.
Yeah.
No earthly idea what that is.
Yeah,
though.
I haven't smoked that one yet. I think there's one maybe available for me to smoke. I want to give it a try. We did have the other one. It is
flavored.
It is flavored. We're not going to say what it is. We know what it is. Not in my wheelhouse, but if you are, if you're a lover of that
I'm very interested to see
segment that
what
is
people
Drew Estate
think about
does,
it.
I think it's probably there. It's not as
I'm very interested to see how the market reacts to it.
I do because it's
Very
not the
interested.
same.
No. When I first smoked it, I told
Even
you
though it's
I
going to
thought
be
it-
named the same, it's not the same.
Yeah, I
In
thought
my
it was a undercrown that they'd put a sweet cap on,
Yeah.
and I don't know, it's just weird. Anyways,
And that's not what it is.
no, that is not what it is. Warped, no earthly idea. I'm
It's
sure
going to be
Kyle
something.
will have stuff.
It's going to be
but-
something. It's going to be cool. It's going to be good.
Yep.
It's going to be limited.
Yep.
It's probably going to be pricey.
Yep.
That's all right. I mean, that's kind of what he does. He fits this very specific mold in the cigar industry that not a whole lot of people are in. It's, He keeps it very boutique, very personal, very limited.
Yep.
We haven't been disappointed with anything he drops.
No. Honestly, if we get to go to the show, the thing I'm most excited about, and we've talked a little bit about, and this is no guarantee for anyone listening, but we have been toying around with the idea of expanding some brands in our humidor.
Yep.
And so we have some meetings set up with some folks of brands that we don't carry. That's what I'm excited about more than anything this year. Is the possibility of it, seeing what we could do with these folks, seeing how it could fit in the humidor. And there's no guarantees on any of them, but
it's also
it's exciting.
To be honest with you, it's kind of nice that the PCA it's not loaded with limiteds and huge new releases from all the people that we're partners with, because it does free up a little bit to kind of dabble with some new companies and on the boutique side and everything like that. We've talked about. We've talked about West Tampa. We've talked about Domain. We've talked about Chamali, Crowned Heads.
So we've talked and I hadn't told you about this yet. So this is a first world reveal right here.
Oh, wow.
We've got a meeting with the broker that handles HDA cigars.
HDA,
which is a veteran-owned company.
Yep.
He also handles Lure cigars, which we have smoked before, and I think they have some of the coolest packaging out right now.
They absolutely have some of the coolest. They do. I haven't seen everything, but the stuff I have seen, I feel like they do more with less on their packaging than anybody else.
Agreed.
They have the best bang for your buck, I think, packaging and how they do it.
Yeah,
and
it's
like
super cool, and I feel like it fits our customer profile really well. So, got a meeting with him. I've never met the guy. His name's John. He seemed like a nice guy on the phone, but yeah. So, and he carries a couple other brands of things that I've never even smoked before. So, it'll just be interesting to see what else is out there, because I had this conversation with somebody the other day that's a customer of ours that's really into boutique cigars. And I asked him, hey, what's out right now that's got you excited? Because for us, and I told him this, it used to be that our humidor was incredibly boutique. But either one of two things happens with boutique companies. Either they grow to the point where they're not boutique anymore, or they go out of business.
Yep.
And we have thankfully worked with great partners and picked great partners over the years. And so companies like Foundation, even Tatuaje, my father, back in the day.
When Larry was carrying my father was what Foundation was 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? Barely on the radar, you kind of messing with stuff. So I don't want to say we're known for that, because, lots of people carry this stuff. I get it. But we've done a good job. Like, we talk about this when people, want to sell us new stuff. And I totally understand, you're in the sales business. We curate the humidor for our customer base.
Right.
And when we bring something in, we don't do it half-assed or, with haste. We look for companies that we feel like we are going to grow with, and they're going to grow with us.
Correct.
And we made that conscious decision when it's been 2026, 8 years ago, when I took over the pipe from Larry on the Foundation piece.
Yep.
We were, early adopters on Foundation, and it's grown into a great brand for us. I think if any of the guys were sitting here from the company, they would say that partnership's been awesome. Growing in this region for them. Others carry it, but not the way we do, and the love that we show it, because we saw in them what they saw in themselves, right? And we take great care in trying to do those types of things. Like, it's not, we don't fall victim to, one customer comes in and says, you should carry this, and then turn right around and buy a box of it, and the box sits there. We don't do it like that. We think about our humidor in a way that's going to...
It needs to be a compliment.
It needs to complement what we do, right? It's like we're not a cigar superstore. We can't have a box of every single thing in there. And we've gone into humidors of what we would call cigar superstores and see how they handle it. And it's not a way that we would handle it. If we're bringing your stuff in, we're bringing your stuff in to move your stuff, not one box of it sitting there and be like, yeah, we carry Lure. There's the one
Yeah,
thing.
here's your tackle box. Or yeah, it you know, as much shit as I've talked about Steve Sacco on here and Dunbarton. Listen, if we thought that Dunbarton would be a good complement to our humidor, we would bring Dunbarton in. But the reason we don't bring Dunbarton in is because it would compete with Foundation.
Yeah,
it would compete with Drew Estate, two companies that
starts to feel redundant.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like these companies are companies that we have partnered with and have for a long time.
Yep.
They take great care of us. It's a multi-beneficial relationship. We do good business with them. We help them grow their brand. So like, we don't want to bring anything in that's going to hinder another brand that we already have a good partnership with, is my point.
Yeah.
But there have been some new boutiques that have come out over the last, we'll call it 3 to 4 years, that people are excited about, that honestly we haven't had the chance to smoke yet because we are so busy. You know, we've had such a quick expansion with everything. So companies like Lure or HDA or Domain or West Tampa or Chamali, or even another one that I want to talk to is, and I'm going to say it wrong, I always call it Palstein, but I think it's like Palstani or something.
Palstein,
yeah.
P-O-W-S-T.
Yeah, so like those are made by Roma.
Yep. Yeah, made by
those
Roma.
are made by Romacraft, but Half Wheel's been really high on them. So I'm hoping that when we're at our Romacraft meeting, we can at least introduce ourselves and get some samples and kind of find out what's going on with them, because I just don't know.
They've been very, you know, I've seen them at the shows basically since I've been going, last 5 or 6 shows or whatever, and they've just kind of inched kind of up, but they're in the Romacraft, call it ecosystem.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah. Nico Sueño makes their cigars.
Yeah, in how they handle production numbers and everything like that. Like, I think if you're a Romacraft fan, you know how Roma kind of handles production and everything like that. It's like, we've made this many are gone now.
Yep.
And it's just wait till the next round of this many are made again.
Yep. Yeah, and honestly, that's the stuff that I enjoy. I mean, PCA last year was the first time I went to PCA, but that was what I enjoyed the most. So if we get to go, that will be what I'm looking forward to the most this year, is just seeing what else is out there that other customers have been talking about.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. So you'll know if we're going because you'll see our Instagram, you'll see live. We're going to do a bunch of filming this time around, kind of like, I think the day in the life of Jason and Ethan at the show and stuff like that. If we can get that filmed ourselves and handheld and everything like that. But we're there. You're going to see us there. You're going to see all the new products. You're going to see us go live probably both Saturday and Sunday. You know, we're going to absolutely try our hardest to be there. But again,
listen, if we're not there, then
if we're not
it's
there,
great news for everybody.
Yeah,
because
100%.
This thing is opening, baby.
If we're not there, it's because it's either this is open at that very moment or it's about to be open within days of that, and we're moving stuff over. So it's either we're gonna have a great time there doing stuff, or we're rocking and rolling in here. So if you're listening to that and you don't see us there, you should be here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And my guess is if you're listening to this, you will be here.
Yeah.
Because the excitement, you know, it's taken me longer than I would hoped. We hashed out why that is. It is what it is. But all good things come to those who wait, I guess.
The end is in sight.
All right. That wraps us up on Connecticut's. I think your next one, maybe we'll do Habano, whether it's a Habano Maduro kind of combination or we separate them out. And I think this helps you learn. It helps if you're listening to this, if you're watching it, helps you get a better grasp on the stuff, especially if you're, you know, new to Connecticut. So if you're only a broadleaf smoker or only a full body Maduro smoker, you know, making an venture into this is not something that's going to be a turnoff to you.
Yep.
Yeah. So great podcast. We'll see you guys later. Be back with the next one. Hopefully you'll see us with a bunch of stuff at PCA.
Yes, sir.
Peace.
Yeah, between two burns, yeah, between two burns. Come and join the convo. Jason and Ethan here to talk, yo. Chilling while we filling up the room with cigar smoke. Hey, between two burns, yeah, between two burns. This be the show that you like. We always keeping it hype. We got cigars and a mic, talking the pipe and the pint. Let's go.